Welcome everyone to our budget meeting for January 24th. We'll call the meeting to order. Everyone is present. Revision of disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone has any, please forward through to Marcy. And we do have a couple of items we have to deal with here. The first one is to amend the agenda to include a closed session. We need a mover for that. Sue and Michelle, all in favor? Carried. And the second one is to allow for questions from Colin.
Okay.
Moved by Michelle, seconded by Lina. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, now we get into the minutes, and the minutes are, unless you need them broke down, from 3A to 3C, and then to 3G.
I'll move the series of minutes.
Moved by Michelle, seconded by Lina. All in favor? Carried. Okay, opening comments.
Great. So through the chair to the budget committee, we're here this afternoon to do the next session of budget and our discussions. So up to date, we've had each one of the department heads has come in and kind of walked through the budget. And from the last meeting, there was a couple of things that were asked for myself to come back and provide a few updates. So uploaded, we have new year-to-date actuals for the 2024. In a minute, we're going to walk through each department at a high level, and I'll go slowly. So I'll go into one department, and then we'll go down to the next page and look at the next department. The other thing that was asked was a list of the FTEs for 2024 and then 2025. So that's been in the package as well. There also is in the package capital items. So I say it's capital carryover. So it's capital items 2024, which will be carried forward into 2025. So we'll walk through that list as well. I will note that there will be some entries that will still impact those balances, but there is as of date. And then the last thing is there is two scenarios that I was asked to come forward with. And one is a 3.5% budget scenario. And the other one is a 4.5% budget scenario. So we'll pull those up after we've done the year-to-date, the other items. And we'll walk through some of the suggestions in order to get to those. And then hear back from the budget committee if there are other items that you would like to look at, or if we need a department head to come back and give a little bit more of an explanation for their area where we can go. So if everybody's okay, and I'll just put a reminder is that when we were last here, if you look at the budget recap, it lists all the departments and where we're at. And at that point, we were sitting with a 10.68%. So the scenarios we're looking at will get us to a 3.5. So that's kind of where wrapping up and starting right now. So if you want to go to page 41 of the budget document, it is the administration budget. So is everybody there yet? And we have it up on the screen too if anybody doesn't have their computer with them. So if you look as a reminder how this budget is set up, the first column shows 2023 actuals. It then goes into 2024 year to date. It then goes into 2024 budget, and the last column, of course, is the 2025 budget. It shows the change and the variance as a percentage. So the very top line under revenue is the county of Middlesex. So I refer to that as the net tax impact to the county. And you could see the 2025 budget, if you're just looking at admin right now, it's that 4,695,721. If you look at the budget the previous year, that's where you're at 4,270,483. You see that increase of 425,238. And that's a 9.9%, 9.96% increase. And then you can see, go ahead, so.
Through the chair to you, so DCs are in there and that's one of the reasons for the bump.
The development charges?
Yeah.
Yes, they are in the budget. No, but that's not the reason for the increase for the county of Middlesex. This is just the administration.
Oh, administration.
Piece of the budget, sorry. I'm not gonna go into detail, I'm just kind of walking through, if
Okay.
anybody's listening, I'm just walking through how the little chart works, just for the first one, I hope that's okay.
Sorry, thanks.
I always forget there's people out here listening and I'm trying to be inclusive.
Sure, sorry.
And then if you wanna look, I always talk about gross and net, so if you're looking at the net budget, if you look at the total revenue line, which of course matches your total expense line. So our 2025 budget, for instance, for a min, is that 8.9. So that's entirely what the county is responsible for a gross budget, but when we're looking at the tax amount, that's when you go to the county of Middlesex line, and that's what I consider to be our net fund. Just wanna make sure that I'm being transparent around there. So you can go through, as you can see. It starts with the revenue. And I will point out a couple things if you want. So I have the supplementary taxes. If you look at the year-to-date amount, it's at 489. When obviously this is the most current, except for today, I did get Strathroy Care Tax numbers. So I know there's about 180,000 that will be added to that. But we're getting pretty close. I'm only missing 2 municipalities and their amounts would be large. So we won't be able to meet, we won't be at the 900,000. And the interest income, you can see where we're at, a little bit higher than budget. We're going to be talking about that during the budget recap and what to do. I would like to point out lots of things are happening with the economy and politically, and so when I did give you an idea of budget recap, I was being a little conservative, knowing that things are happening in the economy and political. If you want me to point out anything else, I can. If you go down that column, we talked about the revenue, you got expenditures, it gets divided by the governance and members of council. I will want to point one thing out for the members of council. We are 1 month behind for salaries for council. So that gets posted in January. So it only has 11 months in there instead of 12. So it's a little bit lower year to date than 2004.
I have a question on the renting facilities.
Yeah,
Okay, they're for income. I thought there was going to be quite a drop. Because like the Middlesex room isn't being used anymore, I think is it?
correct. The Middlesex room's not there, but we've been getting money for the parking lot. So we were able to add money
So that's
for the
part of
parking
it.
lot. Yeah. So that money wasn't in the 2024 budget because we didn't know if we were going to have the parking lot. But we ended up having a good steady income, so we put that in the budget. So that did offset. what we
Okay,
were
that
losing
offset it,
before.
'cause
Yes,
I expect to see a bigger drop.
It was really worthwhile, like it was to do that.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It gets busy in there for like today. There's activities happening over there today. So we went in there, expenditures for governance. And then the library board, Middlesex accessibility. And then the next piece is the big piece, which is all of the staff, so administration. I will point out, it includes treasury, legal services, legislative services, our general manager of strategic initiatives, and human resources, the CIO. Are all part of this admin budget. And you go down to facilities, facilities manager, and there will, if you do happen to look at the year-to-date on this one, you will see some areas are a little bit lower. I do expect some invoices, but I do think we'll have a little bit lower expenses this year than we have in the previous years. And that would be our maintenance. I can tell you utilities, we still probably have at least 2 months that we have to put in there, so we will be probably close to budget. And there'll be a bit more in there for the maintenance, or for the maintenance when it comes to cleaning and a couple other bills, snow plowing. We have there about 6 months of snow plowing usually. Impact, I haven't updated this document, but I did get an updated balance or renewal for impact, and it's about 44,000 more. So it's not in the budget, but that is a very current number I've just gone to. And then we just go through, there's no changes to the capital amounts. So. Quickly go down to the next department. I'm gonna go a little faster for these. I just did an overview of the first one, just in case anybody's listening. And then there's the detailed sheets. So I'll stop before we get to the next one. Any questions on the year-to-date numbers that are in the minutes? So,
I just had one, like the salaries. So does that include? Like the budget, does that? For 2025, does that include any new FTEs? Or is that strictly projected salaries based on what 2024 was?
yep, so if you go to the FTE sheet. There is a new position.
Yeah, I saw, I just want, yeah, so it doesn't do that.
Yes, sorry, it was just a general question.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So if there is any new FTEs in any budget, it is included in the 2025 numbers. And then we will go through later if you want through the FTE list, which is going to add its. Okay. So, or get to the next one, if you have no other questions on admin, I'll give you a second that you can look through. For planning and woodlots is the next one.
The legal services, why were they up so high in 2024? Is that, I don't know if you can speak to that in open or not. And is that recoverable?
So which part of the legal services? Sorry, now I jumped out.
Sorry, I'm planning a lot, sorry, planning a lot.
She means legal services in planning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That had to do with the change in legal services here. So, Dirk had to go outside and get some legal expertise.
Okay,
And you'll notice that it's captured a little bit in the 2025 budget as well.
It's also volume.
And
yeah, I was thinking this would lot, so playing that. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
and just changes that they're seeing.
Right,
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of reasons for that. So if you have a look, I'm on page 77 of planning and woodlots. Everybody's there. And again, I'm not gonna walk through, but you can see the revenues, you can see the expenditures. The one that the councilor just asked for was under expenditures. And well, the bottom is the third one called legal services. And it went from a budget, it's a budget now of 201,500. Oops, sorry. 105,000, and it was 23,000, so huge slip between the two.
Cindy, do we show, we know revenue this year from woodlots harvesting? Where would that be?
So they would be down in the, that should be down, if I'm correct, in. Yeah.
Fine,
Yeah, I'll have to come back to that one.
okay,
It should be in the.
that's in a subsection. but-
Yes.
We might see it when you drove them.
In subsection.
Any other questions on planning?
Sorry, so legal services, I understand, 2024, the amounts were higher, right, because we had to go outside, so, but for 2025, we're looking at even more legal review or some other work being done that increases that number?
Yes. Yeah, Dirk talked about that.
Sorry, and
Yeah,
I
there's
just can't
more.
recall.
Oh, then you maybe weren't here.
Pushbacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
More pushback.
Yes.
Thank you.
It outline a little bit
It's all coming back.
what they would be, like what those,
Okay.
beginnings.
If you go up to the top. So I showed you the budget numbers. It's just a reminder, if you go up to the top, there's an explanation of any of the increases. Those are included in the document as well. So it talks about pressures, it talks about the growth related pressures and planning. It then talks about legislative and policy changes. And it talks about the Ontario Land Tribunal appeals, so that all ties, especially the appeals ties to. Oops. Those are pages 74. Thank you. So that's how it goes for each one. It talks about pressures and it talks about opportunities. And those explain the budget increases or decreases that we're seeing.
How short the conversation is on planning. You have such a huge impact on the county and on the lower tiers, like, I mean, it's a big thing for all of us. Cause it's so straightforward.
Yes,
And
yes.
we're good at that.
Good. So then we will get to the next one, which is economic development. So again, I will just point out, and go through them, but if you're looking, a lot of comments in this one. But if you're on page 92, you see where the opportunities are. And it will talk about pressures. The actual budget document is on 96, which again outlines the 2025 budget. This, as you know, and you may want the director to come and talk to you guys later, but this is where we do have a large increase. So, you can see right there, again, I'm not going to point that out every time, but if you're looking at the county of Middlesex, that is the net piece. And if you look at the increase from 2025 to 2024, that's where you see an increase of 363,682, which is an increase almost of 42%.
So I'd like that director to come back because I think there's an opportunity that's not been identified there. So, to the chair. Just to have a fulsome conversation on that. I know there be some restrictions, but just to see what the possibility is to include that consent, everything should be under funded.
Yeah, so our plan was to, if I know what we're talking about, our plan was to do the background work, understand the magnitude of the opportunity, and then bring it to council. So I can get an update. I did kind of get an update just 2 days ago, but I can get another update and see if that timing works. And then we could maybe bring it in camera to council. Because I think actually, I'll send you a note, but I think there's actually 2 opportunities that should be explored. So we're kind of working on, and they both just emerged.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthy of having a bigger discussion than just like at council about whether those are opportunities or not.
Yeah, because whether we can execute on it is one thing, and then the other is the run of time to do it.
Exactly.
Things take so long and political.
I think that's right, and then even space and a whole pile of different things is what we're trying to figure out, so.
Okay, so we'll park that. I'll listen then. Okay, thank you.
And then you can see the year-to-date actuals are there. So only a small difference between the budget and the actuals for that department.
So they brought forward the budgets.
Correct, so
I know they were similar in amounts, but
yes, so this in front of you right here is the actual budget. If it was to continue as it has in the past, but just adding some staff. The other submission that was brought forward, which is called a business case, this is the first year that we put forward some business cases. If you remember, there was 3 in total, and economic development was one of them. And you are correct, when you look at the business case, it is a little bit lower than this submission, but very similar in amounts. So you would pick one, you either pick the business case, you go forward with that approach, well, pick whatever I guess. Those are the options in front of you. You can pick the business case as presented, or you can go to the draft budget in front of you, and you also can recommend some changes to the budget.
Yeah, sorry, I
no,
apologize.
go ahead.
Those business cases, will they make their way to council as a whole, as part of the budget presentation?
They are part of the budget package, however, the budget committee will make a recommendation as to, if the business case is in, or not, but you will still be able to see them.
So we have discussed either here or maybe it was just you and I, Brian. About, it might have been just you and I recently, but about how it would be so advantageous for council to have that presentation that we had, it was here, right? And that should happen at the council as a whole, just to get that broad overview. So I've already told Kara to expect that. To do that.
Michelle,
That's the same question that I had. Can we see the business case first? To inform us if that is, the way to go in terms of changing economic development. But I thought, Kara had indicated, no, you need to include the cost for the business case as part of this budget. Like, I heard that we need to make a decision before we get the business case, but I might misunderstand that, I'm not sure.
If I can go through the chair to the committee, I do, a business case was presented to the budget committee. So the business, yes, at a high level, was attached, so it was, the presentation was on this budget in front of you, which we're on page 96. Also included in the budget package was a high level, business case for, the new format. So just to be clear, two things were presented to the budget committee. But however, would it be very useful and beneficial to the entire council? I have to agree with everybody gives it different.
So Brian, all I've told her so far is that, to do what she did here, there. But if you want something more than that or different than that, we'll have to let her know.
okay,
Well, I just thinking, if you mean, broad brushstrokes is one thing, context, but what's associated in costs and timing and implementation phases, all that piece, I'd still like to know.
I would make comment, I did mention it to Kara when she was here. She asked for 2 full-time people. And I said, even if we don't change, you need 2 full-time people if we go same old. Like if we don't, yeah, like if we don't change it, you still need two people. I think I'd like to hear more Kara when she presents of that, because that's just my thought. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we need some more on that.
I agree.
If the thinking is to, with the new, I don't know.
Well, if
She has to speak,
people
you know.
still need clarity, I guess.
Yeah, we need clarity on
Maybe
it.
because it's been a few weeks since we had the conversation, so one of my takeaways, I think, we're going under a court, but I think. She mentioned she had access to other funding. So. That's just one, but maybe we need to be reminded.
I think council for sure needs to know what they're voting on. Right?
We'll come back to this in a minute, because we'll have to have some determination what we're going to do with that, but is there any other questions? With the budget that's in front of you on economic development?
I would throw it out there, because like you see, we're at this, and I don't see us doing the same old and expect different results. I think move forward. In general, I mean, I'm talking about if we can make this work. I don't see us just doing the same old and not moving forward.
Let's say Washington needs 2.3 more.
Well, but then at least we're jumping into something else, you know? I think we're changing the, that's just my own personal thought off the top, if we're.
Well, and I think like a SWOT analysis would really be helpful, because the conditions are changing, right, in terms of.
Yeah.
I think when we first received the information about a new economic development design, there were some certainties, and now things aren't so certain, right? So that's changing the landscape, so I'm not sure, does that mean that we need to somehow rethink, or are we flexible, or is there another maybe model that we need to take a look at?
Can I just interject for a second and say, is there something you want her to talk to you about now? Or is this all like, would you like a precursor to the 11th? Or talk to her yourself, because she's here? So you can tell her all this, I'm texting her and telling her all this, but she's gonna watch the video, or you can just tell her yourself, it's up to you. But
And through the chair, I kind of would put something back as well, because you're gonna need to put some recommendation in front of council for our February 11th meeting, so. If you're thinking that she might be able to answer a couple questions to give you a better recommendation, whether it's keep the existing one, pick the business case, or something in between, you might want to think about that.
We need to hear from her now, or
Yeah, so actually, Cindy raised a good point, so we need to make a decision today about what goes to county council on the 11th.
Or we have to have another meeting, but you have to give some recommendations, what you would like me to put forward to that February 11th meeting. So, or it can just be.
it can be an
council
open
talk.
question for council, we've done that before too, where there's two choices that are fairly similar. I think where it helps is when they're not this similar, like when there's a massive difference, because then you can talk about big picture percentages. But these are fairly close in the rounding error differences, and really it's just more about approach, so I'd be less concerned about it coming from the budget committee, and it could be, in my view, it could be put as a placeholder in the budget, one way or the other, and then decided at council.
well, we're not talking $1 million difference between the two.
No, I forget the number that,
It's actually a little less, but
but
not much, but.
regardless,
very similar.
she's here
Very
if
similar.
you want her time, she's here.
You're in the mid 300,000.
Yeah.
Total, certainly.
But there's a commitment, if we choose the new model going forward. There's a commitment that we need to make sure that we put that money in, was it for another 2 or 3 years?
Oh,
In future budgets.
Yes, exactly, yes.
but the CIO is absolutely correct. You can put it forward and just say, and you leave the budget as is, with the discussion.
What you would. Very on. Do you want her to come down? Like, is there specific questions for her? That we need?
I think if she's in the building, just to get it dealt with now. That's just my opinion, but I'm only one voice,
Through the chair, she might also be able to give
some clarity,
some clarity or what you're looking for her to come back to council.
SWOT analysis.
Yes,
yeah.
it would help her when we come back to council. If she.
Well, yeah, it's not
Maybe
fair
she's
to-
gonna present.
You need to give her some context around this.
But I don't disagree, I think this is a presentation that the entire council needs
That's what
to
I was
hear and
thinking, but
understand.
actually,
There's no question about that, yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm saying, I don't wanna bring her down if we don't have
it's
specific
like letting
questions.
it bang over your head and making a decision. If they don't get the context, the background, the timing.
But I think through the chair, I think a couple of those things may be beneficial for her to hear from you that. She might need to do a presentation.
I don't think she, yeah, I don't think she needs to do a presentation or.
No. If you want, we'll keep going, then we'll come back.
Yeah, let's-
Okay with that?
Yeah, let's do that.
So any other questions, though, first of all, make sure there's nothing on the year to date. That's the only change seen for this budget. Then we're gonna go to the next one. Yeah, it's gonna get this. So IT, just so you know, I'm prepared, but it's 118.
Here's the good.
Okay, yeah, let's, first, so let's.
Day, everyone. It's purple day.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo, I'm gonna hunt to them, I guess.
It's my favorite color, so I'm like.
Thanks for coming down.
Wants to start,
Well, because I could,
okay, go ahead.
well, you know, Kara, as well as we do, things are changing, right, in terms of, what's happening south of the border and does any of those potential changes, and we still don't know kind of where things are gonna land at the end of the day. Does it, in your mind, change the direction that you want to see in terms of economic development, like what we do today? Like, I don't know what the outside factors are, kind of how it's informing you in terms of how we need to proceed forward. And that could be unfair because you still don't know the answers to some of those questions too, right?
Well, many of us don't, unfortunately, we don't have those answers, and even those that are at the helm probably don't at this point. With respect to our upper levels of government or even our industries. Certainly there is, you know, a level of anticipation, I think, and some anxiety, I'm sure, across the board. Province is doing its part to ask the important questions of industry with respect to any delays. But in terms of our approach to economic development, I don't feel that it is significantly impacted. Industries that want to do business in Canada, or for that matter, some that wish to do it in other countries, look to Canada as an opportunity. And so there will be a shift, as much as there is a shift in terms of maybe current industries that are servicing the US in terms of, you know, what may happen with respect to tariffs that could impact their business. There's also other businesses that will look to locate in Canada in order to continue to do business in Canada effectively. So it's really a mixed bag. Unfortunately, we don't have all the answers. Everything is very fresh and new. We don't know what's going to be happening in our own province. We don't know what's going to be happening in our own nation. And then we have the international sort of threat as well. So lots of complications. At the same time, in terms of our approach and in terms of how it impacts Middlesex County, very little change. I don't see that impacting really our. Also, we're at precipice of developing a strategy or a business plan this year. And so all of those things will come into play in terms of doing things like a SWOT analysis as we go through this year to determine really where those opportunities and threats will.
Oh, there is opportunity with the change, right? And I want to see they support it too with us.
Absolutely.
So your risk assessment piece doesn't get influenced, like if that's, with that perspective on moderated change.
Well, I think that's part of the plan for this year, right? Is to really so we have two things on the table, right? So in one model, we're developing a new economic development strategic plan. In the other model, we're developing a business plan. Both have that risk assessment as part of it, right? They're inherent part of the process. But do we have all the answers right now? No, but in either scenario, we already built in the opportunity for that risk assessment. So it comes actually at a pretty opportune time that we have the opportunity to do those things. So I'm not saying it doesn't impact, but I'm saying we don't have all the answers right now. And those things were planned in 2025. So as the year develops, we will have answers and they will be inherent.
So, yeah, we're just in phase one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now your change of FTE to 2.3, that's going to be regardless of which way the department goes, whether it be into stand to the status quo. So is it because you're going to be doing business differently, or it's a capacity issue?
Well, it's a little bit of both, right? So in terms of the interim department, it's a capacity issue mostly in terms of the level of work that we're enduring and the level of requests we have. We have a number of brands, right, from the marketing perspective, and so that's included on that side, and it is difficult to keep up with all of that. And if we were not to do that position, we would have to look to outside sources to continue that level. So, so that's on the marketing side. On the EDO side, it's certainly a capacity issue in either model, but we are looking at doing things differently as well. In order to service some of the needs of the local municipalities and in terms to keep up the level of partnership that we already enjoy and to elevate that as well. And I would like to bring in some other expertise in order to facilitate some of the specialized projects that each municipality is looking at. So there's that piece. The 0.3 that you're seeing there is actually summer students. We have had many summer students over the years. We usually bring them in just for a few months. They're university level students from the local area. We have primarily focused their their time and effort on tourism related matters, but we would like to be able to offer that opportunity to a student on the economic development front. So I think it's very important in terms of sustainability and also supporting our own strategies with respect to workforce development and letting young people know that there are opportunities for growth and for jobs here in Middlesex County, and that it's exciting work. We do know that we are going to have 2 months where we have a leave of our current EDO. So I also have to supplement that and ensure that we have coverage.
Just one final question, because I'm just trying to kind of, in my own mind, figure out kind of which way to go on this one. So what would be the primary drawback with the wait and see approach? Kind of basically status quo, wait for a year, and then make a decision in terms of if we want to change the models, because we'll have a bit more information at that point in time in terms of where things are heading or going.
Well, I think there's a demand at this time, right? And I think there's been a demand that's been pent up for the last few years. We are at that point at which we need to either develop a new economic development strategic plan. And I don't feel like waiting is the option. I think that we've been presented with the information and recommendations from the external consultants that we brought in 2024 to give us some answers. I think now is the time. We also have to have the consideration of cost of current staffing. So we have our staff in the department as well that would have to be asked to make a transition if we go with the other route. And the longer you wait for that, the more risk of cost that you have associated with that. So there's a number of reasons why I would say it's a now type of situation. We do have the industrial land issue at the heart of things as well, and we need to get prepared. And if we're not going to get prepared and we're going to sit status quo, we're just going to be another year.
I'm just gonna add something, just people don't mind, sometimes the best defense is a good offense, and you need to go at it. And the other thing I would say is there's always opportunity in crisis, but in my community, Strathroy, I'm greatly worried about the tariffs. It's two of our largest employers are in the automotive industry, Meridian, and if anything happens to them, it would be devastating to our community, not just in terms of tax-based employment. So anything we can do in economic development, not just to bring new business, but to help retain what we have, I think that's going to be vitally important. I will say I'm very worried about what could happen in our community with the tariffs.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
It's like you feel the faith, right?
So is there anything else? I think, Kara, that the committee feels that you should present both options to all of council, not just to the committee, correct, and leave it a little more open. Then actually, we talked, I believe the consensus would not really make a recommendation to let council, correct?
Yeah, we could put a placeholder in the budget.
Yeah, placeholder, but I mean,
But their input and cut.
Yeah.
They have no information at this point in time, and if we're going to have an intelligent conversation, I think everybody needs to have context and everything.
like, as the rest of council needs to have that same information. I think that's it, thank you. Thanks, you.
Thanks, Karen. It's not hearing.
All right, so, IT.
So we are on page 119, and again, that's an overview of the IT. Again, the budget hasn't changed in this, so the only thing here is the year to date. And you will see fairly close year to date actual compared to budget. Again, of course, there'll still be some small entries that still have to go through. Any questions on information technology?
Any questions on IT? No? All right.
We are on page 136. So this one here, you can see the year-to-date actual, just slightly a little bit more than the budget, but it'll be fairly close. This one, actually, we did put in a little bit, there's year-to-date and projections. Year-to-date, we're almost bang on with projections, so I didn't revise it for that, so. As you know, we get provincial funding for most of these programs, whether it's the Ontario Works, the childcare, including Canada-wide early learning childcare, and also our homeless programs. One of the biggest items, of course, in here is the social housing. And just a reminder, we just get a bill from the City of London, and then we get the budget numbers directly from the City of London as well. I have no indication. I know that last year we did see a surplus in the housing. I'm not getting any indication that there'll be a surplus this year. Did ask again yesterday during the meeting, but. Any questions on social services?
This is social housing lines.
Let's go to the.
Oh, it's on the next page. Thank you.
It is, yes, because you go through a number of expenditures. We start with Ontario Works, the childcare,
Yeah, I did see
and it's on page 137. And it's social housing, so that's an increase of 565,000.
Any other questions on this?
So let's keep going. And in there, about page 153, in there was that business case 2 on housing. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we're doing the budget. Transportation, which is a large budget. We're looking at the net amount. So we are on page 163. So again, you can look at the year-to-date numbers here. Up to date, but I will point out of all the departments where there's still some invoicing and stuff that will come in is definitely going to be in the roads department. By January 10th, I think we had more than 600 invoices that we had to process. So those are all in there, but there's some more that are also.
Surplus funds from last year from the department.
Social transportation.
Transportation.
I could get that for you. I don't know it by heart, but I can get that for you.
I think I would.
It's probably a lighter year than this year.
I'd like to,
Know what that is.
because we had that snow in December. I
Yes,
mean,
we
I
do.
know Chris was saying that was around 600,000. You know, that costing that weekend. And so I'm just curious, like last year, like what's the surplus on this department? Because it's a big department.
So you're looking for 2023, because your year-to-date actuals right here for 2024.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's still some invoices that will come through, so you are
So so the question was,
Just
the surplus for this department,
Yes.
so you're projecting the surplus to me, I think is the right way to say it.
Yeah, okay, say it different with it. What is our projection for surplus on this from 24?
from 24. Well, if I'm looking right there, your county of Middlesex is 21 million, or 26, our budget is 29. So maybe,
600,000?
yeah, I was just gonna say less, there's bills coming in, so yeah, maybe, yes, yeah.
Problem,
Maybe about half.
if it's 600 and down.
Yeah. Okay, does that make sense?
Especially from my fingers and toes, yeah.
Which is less than I thought.
Yes,
But you see how one event could take that out, right? They're telling me one event 600 grand.
But it doesn't, it's not in all parts of it. It is in the snow and co-chair it is, but not in.
does that answer your question? So the next one, after transportation. There is the lodge. So we are on 178. So this is showing the budget, which is actually for this department will be a decrease of 732,733,000 approximately. And the reason for the decrease is because the increase in provincial funding that's coming to. Sometimes you do get a gapping, especially in 2023 and 2024, in relation to when the department is informed when they're getting provincial dollars. If it's for the case mix index, we get that in about April every year and their budget's already done. So that has skewed some of the numbers, but it's around timing. So we'll put in that we need the money for council in the net budget, but during the year we may get additional. That's why you see some surplus.
Which is what happened last year.
Absolutely. And it has over the last number of years because of all the new provincial funding coming from the province. As they're did a big overhaul of their funding framework and some of the outcomes. And then the only other thing that I would comment on here, you're also seeing an increase in 2025 for the staffing budget, and that goes along with the additional funding that they're getting from the province. Yes, we do have some change.
Yeah, that was on the chart.
Yeah.
What you said, we're looking right.
No other questions on long-term care?
I have on capital,
Okay,
and it's not a big amount of money. I'm just wondering, the domestic water mixing valve. You know, it's only $5,000, but like what? You know, what is that? What's domestic water mixing valve?
Non-engineers.
sorry, through the chair, I
I'll-
don't know
I'll-
exactly what that is.
I'll
If you
ask
want,
Brent.
I can get
Okay,
an
I'll
answer
ask
for
Brent.
that.
No, I was just looking at the capital, and just
Sure.
so that would. This is down quite a bit from what we've seen in some past years. The capital.
Through the chair to the committee, absolutely, you are correct. We do have some outstanding, which we're carrying forward projects. And we're also seeing one-time dollars that are able to come from the province that we can help with some of the capital expenditures. So we've seen some of that in 2024. Again, we just get announcements and they come through. So you don't necessarily budget for them because they're usually one-time funding in nature. So I expect to see probably some of those in 2020 as well. So that also helps. So I'd say in response is you have previous where there was lots of requirements. We also, as you know, Paul is coming forward later in 2025 with their asset management plan. And long-term care is included as well. We'll be looking at it from that perspective as well. So
Well, there was an extraordinary expense with the roof, which was huge, right? So that's not a everyday event, so that's.
No, but we did it in the 1 year, which was good, because they were there.
Done, yeah.
But if I could just add to that, we're seeing the last couple of years, like the roof and things, we're starting to see some age. Maintenance that we didn't see in the past. They were different things, but like the boilers and. Oh, and window cladding and stuff like that. Cause it's 18 years old.
20-year problems, yeah.
Yeah, but
That's
that's why the asset management plan support.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just saying, but it's, it just shows where the money for capital is going to be going.
yes,
In the future, it's going to be increased that way. That's where I was headed with that. Okay, thank you.
okay.
Any other questions?
The next one is Middlesex London Paramedic Service, and it's on page 200. So here's another large budget where I can tell you that as we reconcile, there still is outstanding expenditures. So however, this is a good year-to-date figure. And again, no changes to the 2025 budget.
Any questions? No.
Not a whole lot of wiggle room, so.
She's looking at our county of Middlesex cost.
Yeah, if you go up to the top again,
6.4.
Yes.
7.1,
yeah,
that's our portion.
yes, so I always say the net, but that is the county of Middlesex, so every line has a county of Middlesex, and that is the net piece. If you look at the budget recap is where we put it at the front. Okay, so yeah, so an increase of about 500,000. To the county, not an increase in general. Then we got the library. Okay, the library is on page 215. So just as a recap for the year to date, if you look at the 2024 budget compared to the 2024 year to date, you see that it's fairly close, thinking it's about 78,000, something like that. But in their budget, they do have an amount surplus from prior year, it's about 70,000, so they're pretty well net on their surplus. And the budget numbers haven't changed since last time. On many times.
Okay.
Any questions on sitting with that?
Oh, if you do have any questions, some of this stuff, go ahead. This is not our first time seeing some. of this.
That's why
Yeah.
I'm being careful, I
Yeah.
don't wanna go over material that
Okay.
you're going over, so.
Right.
And, yep, just, yeah, just go there. Thanks about the health unit, so, no change really from what we're seeing for the health unit.
But they're, I understand they're reviewing their funding formula right now.
They're asking for problems here.
Yes.
Yeah, so, they, yeah, not them, but, yeah, France. So hopefully we'll see some change there.
But you're noticing for the increase, it's not a large increase, an increase of 3% or 43%. And that's kind of the reserve funds. Are next, but you've seen these previously. So next piece of it, no. So that's kind of an overview that gives you for every single department. You see the year to date changes that have been made and an update from it. Now we're going to flip over to the other section. So if there's any questions, we can.
So back to that, so the winter control there, that's reserves for roads, right?
Yes, absolutely.
In case of some significant event. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty, I'd say it's a pretty healthy reserve. Oh, yeah.
I think you mentioned that presentation too, just keep it moving.
That's why it's got the same number. Yeah, it's the same number here for 20. Yeah.
Just wanted to thank Cindy for providing that additional detail. I think it helps us because I think what we were finding was there wasn't that catch up there in terms of what that was the 2024 budget, what the actuals were, and then the 25 budget, because it seemed like we were still budgeting based on the previous budget figures, so.
That looks like a big surplus, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
so that's been very helpful, so I just want to say thank you for that. I know that was a lot of work.
No, that's okay. It's definitely, this is traditionally when we would be coming forward with budget and be able to provide those numbers. So we're a little bit earlier in the process, but we will make modifications to our end. We only have a number of staff, so we try to do the best, and the focus was on getting the budget prepared, but this time we're going to go back and make sure we have the best possible year-to-date figures that I could provide. So they're as current as they possibly could, because we were up late this week getting them ready for you. So
My question, Terry, and partially the reason for being, I apologize, for fighting something, I'm not sure what it is. So your variance is budget to budget, correct? So that's common, so your variance will be the 2024 budget to the 2025, correct?
no, the variance is the 2024 budget to the 2024 actuals.
No, okay, when you go to the budget, your budget increase, so that's.
Well, that's for the final column, so.
Right, that's the budget, that's the
2025 budget, the 2024 budget, right-hand side, and so the increase is compared budget to budget.
That's right, so I'm
Yeah.
sure this group has done this, but it's always the same with municipal budgeting. That you look at the increase compared to the budget, not to what actually is. So that would go counter to the way I would do things in business, because you would ask the question, I'm sure the group did. Why did you have the variance budget to actual, and if you saved X amount of dollars, why do you need an increase? Right, in 2025, that's always a statement, so I'm sure this group has asked, you know, if you were able to save $1,000 for whatever reason. Why did you save 1,000? And it's a small number, but why did you save that money? And why do you need to have that money plus more for the next year? And I tried to watch the YouTube videos to ask this group, do you do that, right? You ask, why was there a variance? Why do you need to have it again? So my analogy I used when I was manufacturing, if I was able to save $1,000 on ink, right? I couldn't go back to the publisher of the Toronto Star and say, you know, I need that $1,000 for next year plus more, and that's the group. Do you do that?
That's why we asked for an update on.
Did you?
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, this to your point, what we were looking at was. We saw that the 2025 budget was based on text the 2024 budget number, even though the 2024 actual at that point in time was a lot less, right? So what Cindy's gone ahead to do is, because that was at the end of September, I think.
exactly.
We didn't have all of the information to understand what the total costs were for 2024, so staff's gone back to do that. I think there's still some of that though.
Yeah,
Colin,
you're still budgeting to the old budget, not to the actual number. So even though the number you're working with now is probably looks better.
Yeah. But you're right, there's still some.
You're still budgeting to the budget as opposed to the actual.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just came to mind as you were asking the question, Colin, about budgeting and so forth. We don't do zero-based budgeting in any departments any year.
Through the chair to the committee member, I would argue that you're supposed to go back to zero-based budgeting, because you're supposed to ask for what you do need. So that's a philosophy that we have when we talk to the department heads. It is ingrained to say, what do you need in terms of what do you need for a travel expenditure? What do you need from office expenditures? So you will look at previous years and actual expenditures to determine where you're needing, what you need, but you should also be thinking about what are you planning to do in 2025? So for example, you guys asked me a question around travel. And you said for the Treasury Department, my travel actual expenditures have been less than my budget. And I said, well, in 2025, because I had a number of staff turnover, we weren't able to spend the dollars in 2024. However, I'm hoping that staff are able to take advantage of more opportunities in 2025 because they've been here for a little longer. And it makes sense that they need to go and do some training. And there's some local training that would be happening in the Windsor area for my staff. So that's just a small example, but that is the direction that is given to the department heads to think about that. And they should be thinking about what is happening in 2025, what changes are happening in 2025, and put their budgets. If you want to give another example, it would be social services, where we know we've had a lot of change in social services, moving to for Ontario Works to life stabilization, or for childcare or for homelessness. So we've seen a number of provincial changes that are requiring us to change the kind of services that we provide. So we are sending staff to make sure that they have training that supports their goals. So we are doing that. So, but that is definitely something that we should push for next year's budget for 2026 to make sure that department heads really understand what a zero-based budget is and really thinking about that as they move.
So you're thinking of doing an actual rotation, build from scratch budget, like some department. Not every, it's not hard to do with every department area. It's not how to start. Yeah, but you're thinking of doing that then. Yes. So,
Yeah, just in your analogy of travel is actually a good one. So let's say your travel budget is based on the cost per liter of gas. And the cost of gas goes down from your budget and you reflect that savings. You just want to make sure that saving carries over the next year's budget. Let's just Well, that's what I'm asking.
So you're not wanting to see increases baked in just for ease of
That's it,
doing
yeah.
it rather than actually where we're all on the same page there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That answers, you answered my part of the question.
Yes.
Are you happy? Do you feel staff are doing that? But there are times where you go, you can say zero base, but you can't do it in all.
The whole it's usually really hard to do a whole.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to start, but if everybody goes back every 3 years, if you rotate through and you focus on one,
Yeah, so,
it helps.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's helpful, and then even the asset management plan, once that's done, that's gonna be a better resource to help us inform us about those capital projects and put those priority projects to make sure that we're looking at those and seeing which ones can wait and wait. Then that way, we really take the decision making ability kind of off this committee, and it's just exactly.
Okay, so any other questions around that? Okay. So, next on your agenda, I also submitted the list of FTE. I'm not sure if you want to go through that or not. But that was one of the things the budget committee asked to present. So we do have a package around the number of FTEs from 2024 compared to 2025. And as a reminder again to the committee that the 2005 draft budget numbers do include these staff positions. Okay. There, I think he's already commented on that at the beginning about confidential.
-0.11.
Negative,
Oh,
that was, there was a part position to support our building supervisor, that's not. So,
I just looked at that one. Wow. Less than 10% piece.
yeah, he's up there too, but it's hard to
Oh.
see. I would be the first person to say.
It is. Yeah, that's good.
Did you see that?
Sorry.
I think it was a semester, right?
Yes, just part-time. So you'll notice on that list through the chair that the biggest obviously increase is in our long-term care or lodging. Absolutely, we got additional funding from the province and there's also some requirements for resident care, and that's associated with that.
Total hours, so resident care got increased.
That's gonna be the biggest challenge, is finding the people to fill those positions.
Yeah, because you only need them at this point and this point and that.
Yes.
Yes, but it's still required.
Yes, yeah, so through the chair, absolutely. I know that the director is working closely with human resources to make sure that they're looking at the staffing. Obviously, they started in 2023, a bit more in 2024, and definitely as we move into 2000. Obviously, if we can't get all the staffing, we may see a surplus, but I'm hoping that we don't see that. It's important. Any other questions on, and then you've also heard from the Director of Economic Development already around her increase of the 2.3.
Can you remind me again, there's two, in treasury, there's two positions, correct?
They're actually in treasury, there is. I only have one position in treasury, and they were half. So
Oh,
in
that's
the
okay.
2024 budget, they were half and half.
Right,
and
that one was.
then you carry them forward again.
We're
So
just
the
putting the
impact.
other half through.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions on that? Seeing none?
Okay, great, so there's that piece done. The other item that we had was the list of capital projects. Up there, can you see that, Sharon?
I see there's a summary up there, but
So I would just like to remind, these are capital projects that are currently in place, and these are the ones where we talk to every single department head. If they are to be carried forward or not, so all of these are ones determined that they're still open and they're carried forward into, the 2025 year. So this is in addition to the ones that are in the budget. We just want to be clear on that, because the budget includes projects for each department, and then these are the ones that we carry forward. So they're listed in terms of information technology, then they go into the Strathmere Lodge. And I know through the chair, you asked me questions about some of the capital, so you can see, there's a number there. The roof is also a part of one of those. We also have the ones for the library. We have ones for administration. We have ones for the planning department. Obviously, transportation has the most. MLPS, economic development.
Questions on? Some of these are just like with transportation, are projects that are started and it's just for completion in 25.
Correct. Yes, so
Most
all
of
the
it-
funding, everything is already in place. You've already approved all that in the
Right.
past. These are what I would call open projects that are gonna carry forward. And
That's-
again,
Sorry, that shows the traffic signals that were questioned,
yes,
you know. that's-
absolutely.
Counter up to Tanya.
Yeah. Shows
So
those.
page 201, where you, these amounts here,
Yes,
are the difference between them.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, so these are all part of the asking.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move into the next piece, which is, I think, the last thing that I asked for, and it was budget scenarios. So we put together one for 3.5 and 4.5. Which one do you have in front of me? 3.5? Okay, if you want to go, can you go to the next screen by chance, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can see that, it kind of gives a list. Again, I kind of very similar to what I did for year-to-date actuals. I went back to the whole budget and based on probably new information, well, some of it is very new information. Had a look and said, okay, is there any revenue or expenditures that make sense to us at this point in time? That I could change or recommend to the committee to consider. So I can kind of walk you through those if you'd like. So the one is interest revenue, our year-to-date actual is greater than what we have in the budget. So I put in additional amounts there of 40,000. The next one is the revenue. It's considered to be called rent replacement. And I refer to it, of course, as the proceeds of use document. So that kind of ties back again to when we had the sale of the building. And this is a big document that Bill presented to council. A couple of items in there. One of them was just to replace the rent that we lost when the
50K.
health unit left to 50K, absolutely. So originally we had 400,000 over a period of 20 years. In the last couple of years, we've increased that to 600,000. In the budget as presented, the draft budget as presented, it had 500,000. And I'm saying you could go back and add another 100,000 in for that to be consistent with what we've done in the past years. So it's reducing it from 20 years and yeah, obviously every time you do it, so. The supplementary taxes is another one. I say supplementary taxes and hopefully also with the write-offs, they kind of go hand in hand. I've added an extra 100,000. So if you look at the year-to-date actuals for supplementary taxes, you already see that we're less than the 900,000. Still waiting for a couple of municipalities, but I will say we will be less than the 900,000. How I do the supplementary taxes in the budget is I do reach out to the lower tier municipalities and I talk to the treasurers and ask what they're putting in for their budgets. So that is how I came up with the extra 100,000 because of the one of the municipalities had a high amount that they got budgeted for. So that's where I got that from. The rental revenue from the Middlesex London Emergency Services. I went back and I forgot that in 2025, We've done them in 5-year increments, so
Leases?
yes, so in 2025, the amount did increase, so I kind of went in for the difference between the years, and that's how I came up with the extra 150,000. I will point out, as we're going through a number of things, we're going through the asset management plan. We're also looking at our financial tools and everything associated with that, so this will also be part of that discussion as we go forward. Is a big package around how we move forward. Going here, I've got reductions in expenditures, so I have the business cases, so the one is for 30,000. I have the administration for salary contingency. You remember, I think it was about 340. I'm saying that we could take 90,000 out. It had to do with some other items, and we'll just put that off to a future year. And then I've got the business case for housing. The original business case was for 500,000. I'm suggesting that we reduce it to just 100,000, so we're able to at least start it, hire the staff members and get moving with that and work with the local municipalities. So reducing that. And then the last big ones, and this is where I'm sure you'll have conversations, is around the 2024 year-end surplus. I put in there about 1.5, felt very comfortable with that. It may be a little bit higher based on what you're seeing from the year-to-date numbers. And then obviously the tax rate stabilization amount in there for that $1,335,000. I kind of put them together because the policy in the past at county council has been any surplus, we traditionally put it in the tax rate stabilization. So those kind of two go hand in hand, so.
So I did think that original business case housing was 500, so that was why I was curious about that. So we're not pulling the plug on that entirely in this scenario. We still get some work done. How much of the work would actually get done to 100 grand?
Well, you would actually be able to hire the staff member, and the staff member at least would be able to go out, start to meet with the local municipalities. Start to look at some best practices and do that kind of work a little bit closer with the city of London and attend some of the meetings and see if we can leverage any ideas and look for any other kind of funding that we get there. So I think we can start some of that work.
Okay.
Michelle?
But I can appreciate how the tax rate stabilization gets us to where we want to be in terms of. I guess more suitable increase, right, in those two scenarios. I guess my philosophy has always been that you use that for one-offs or if there's something kind of unusual with the budget that we need to fund. I don't see that with this budget. I'm not so sure that we should be using monies from that reserve. I don't know what the answer is, but that's just my comment.
On that topic. I'll ask you, the amount in the fund is 12 million?
It's a little over, it's right now, 2024, I'll be that number projected is 10,891,000.
And which is up. Which, no, but just,
Yeah.
I would say in a couple of years over COVID, we used it pretty heavy. To the tune of $4 million around that 1 year. So for this still to be up, like growing when it was used so heavy for 2 years. I think because the amount we're putting in surplus or projected.
Yep.
We're basically using that surplus money ahead of time, from tax rate stabilization and it'll be replaced. Close to it. That's just where I'm at. And I know we talked a little bit about this.
Yeah, but
And I appreciate what you're saying. I feel comfortable with it.
yeah, so sorry, so my impression is I thought we're using the surplus in addition to the tax rate stabilization. So we're not really putting monies into.
We are at this, in this.
This year.
scenario.
So through the chair, correct, for this year.
In this scenario, yeah.
Yes, there's just.
No, we need, in order to get to that rate, you need to take the surplus plus use 1.5.
Yes.
But it is a healthy reserve.
To get to 3, it's.
Yes, to get to 3.5.
Sure.
Yes. And if not, then we have to go back and we have to look at operations.
Are you drawing from all the other reserves, Cindy? I didn't get a chance. So for the other capital, I know you have a long list of healthy reserves. Are you drawing from there where you can? In order to pay for things?
Yes, we have done that in the past budgets. We've definitely looked at transportation and we've looked at some of those reserves in the past and we've made, brought some of those into the budget last year. So we do look at each one of the reserve accounts and what's in them. This is the one that's the most appropriate actually to apply to the tax.
But not even on departmental capital to draw from a reserve to pay for capital.
Well, we did last year.
Yes, you did.
Bridges were significant.
Bridges,
So
right?
we
You have to,
We
okay.
pulled from the transportation reserve to last year.
So but we are putting money into those reserves as well,
Right.
Chair, and then funding new stuff from the reserve.
Absolutely, yes.
So we are putting into.
It may not be drawn from this year, like last year you did with the bridges. It may not be drawing from to pay for capital.
It depends on different circumstances.
So I'll just start a conversation and we can go from there. I am at 3.5%. Personally. I know that's around the cost of living, but that's where I'm at. And I guess on the other side of that, I would continue to challenge staff to find a few more savings in there. In the operating to help offset and take less from tax rate stabilization, like at that same time. But that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna just throw that out there for the rest of the meeting. Go ahead.
We have two lines. I get what you're saying, Brian, but it kind of looks like. We've got increases of 10, 13, 42, all these percentage increases across the board. As I look down the column, I'm like, okay, it's all good and well to shoot for a number that makes sense to the public and so forth. But it's still what it costs to provide them services or keeping them like. It just gets into a bigger macro picture too. I mean, the whole idea of how we make money and what we can do to raise funds and whether or not we can access, money that's tied to inflation and that kind of thing. It's part of that whole economic prosperity review thing. And I just look at this and I'm going, I don't know, it's supposed to be for emergencies in my mind. I know there's a healthy amount there, and that's, having said that though, I mean, there's something that we need to spend big bucks on, that's an emergency and really a one-off. I mean, COVID is one thing, it's not normal, it's not the normal scenario, the whole world changed and staff had to respond. I mean, there was money coming from the government, but the timing different, like, there was a lot of uncertainty. I don't know, maybe, I don't know what the solution is.
My only question to that is, and I'm not arguing increases of a certain percentage from social housing, we know those fixed increases. Some of our operating percentage of increase. Good question, like, is there room to be worked on the operating side? And then I'm just.
So you're saying like the admin cost, which is up 10% from last year?
Yeah, it's just the
operating.
discretionary.
Yeah.
Is there, I just throw that up. Sue,
So I'm probably leaning towards the higher number, like, I mean, we haven't looked at the second scenario yet, but, for two reasons, there's 4 contracts coming up for renewal this year, and I don't know what those impacts are in here, because they've not been resolved. Because they're outstanding, those 4 labor contracts, that's the first thing, and then the second thing is, you talk to other municipalities, and everybody is having challenges for infrastructure costs. And there's a lot of pressure on the province and everybody's got their hand out asking for money for infrastructure, so. I just wanna make sure we've got money in the coffers so that if there are cuts. That from the province, that we're well positioned to look after our infrastructure. So I don't know, I'm not an expert at this, but
no, but we're throwing our best thoughts forward, and that's why I just started, so we could have a conversation,
yeah.
right? I wanted to have a starting point for conversation. Shut.
I think I'm aligned with Sue in terms of the higher increase. Again,
Meaning the
the
4.5.
4.5, again, I don't wanna really see us to use the tax rate stabilization funds to get us there either, so I don't know if staff has any suggestions in terms of what we can do to like not use that, but keep the increase around the 4.5%. I guess I wanna make sure that our budgets are sustainable moving forward, so that we're not always relying on that tax rate stabilization fund. In addition to any surpluses, to sustain the costs for the next year. So I don't, like, is something gonna be different next year that we don't know about? That we won't have to use the surplus or the tax rate stabilization? I'm thinking probably not, like it's gonna be probably another difficult budget year next year, right?
Or worse.
I think every
Sorry,
year's a
being
difficult budget year. I don't think there's any point saying, no, it won't be as bad, because sure,
Well, we're always trying to be more robust.
sure there'll be pressures to that.
Because there's nothing we get from, I mean, there's nothing we can get for surprise money. Just
And I don't know, like,
Someone try to-
have there, has staff, look, has there been cuts to the budget that we just haven't been made aware of, like? Is everyone kind of getting what they want?
I would say through, but maybe the CIO wants to add something to it, but I would say through the chair, I think people came forward with the budgets that they need to run their operation, and what they were looking for, so.
We started out way higher, did we not, initially?
In terms of, yes, so where we had some big changes was in transportation, yes.
Whatever, so we
It started
started
at
down.
24%.
Yeah.
Right, so
It was
they
in
never
transportation.
asked to go back to the
Yeah.
drawing board and trim that back, so I think if they asked that, be done.
So I think, is there any other specific questions, because we actually have a short closed session. And that gives us some more opportunity to think, there's a recommendation we can do after that, that's what we're showing on the agenda. Correct?
Yes.
We show that on the agenda, so let's, unless there's another specific question. Let's think about it for a few minutes and come back, and I would look for a mover to go into closed. And Marcy, if you can say the reasons for it.
So the motion would be that the next portion of the meeting be closed at 2:28 PM in order to consider financial liabilities pursuant to subsections 239B and K of the Municipal Act 2001. Being a personal matter pertaining to identifiable individuals, including municipal employees. And a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on. Or to be carried on by or on behalf of municipality or local.
I'm glad you include that.